There are various issues that lie under the Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, I think his brother is called, and they're being interviewed this evening by Piers Morgan. I mean, he just can't resist the lure of getting someone famous in front of him, and the interview is very interesting. I've watched a bit of it. I've always wanted to get to grips with who Andrew Tate actually was, because I know there was a big investigation in Britain about him, and then there was and then he went to Romania, and there was an investigation and an arrest, and now he's facing a charges in Romania with his brother, and these charges involve human trafficking and so on. And they've spent time in prison, and Andrew Tate says, well, Romanian prison is exactly what you think it is. It's horrible. And the problem is he's got well, there are two issues. The first issue is the one of publicity, and the second one is and the responsibility that comes with publicity. And the second one is the idea of making money simply by being popular. I mean, he's not making money out of kickboxing, is he? He's not making money out of Big Brother. He's making money out of social media and about the extraordinary following that he's got on social media. And a part of me will say, well done. And a part of me also, because I listen to people who are very enthusiastic about him, it's impossible to have been a teacher without hearing the name Andrew Tate, particularly from impressionable young boys. A good part of what he has to say is very positive about taking responsibility for yourself, about being projecting an image of confidence. I don't know. Does the expression "man up" come from him? I don't know, but he certainly uses it anyway. But then the negative side is the extraordinarily dismissive language which he uses about women, and the miasma of misogyny that surrounds him. I mean, I've just heard him say that females are emotional, and at that I just couldn't really take much more of it. Females are emotional. It's such a dismissive way of talking, and yet he denies the claims that he has coerced people who he's attracted into then working on film and his own only fans or something like that, and making money. And some of those have then suggested that they felt that they had been pressured, bullied, enslaved, and yet Tate comes out with little lines like "slaves that wear Prada." It doesn't matter whether you're a slave in a gilded cage; you're still a slave, and it's still a dismissive comment. And this is the problem that I think lying behind so much of the Tate fantasy is his desire to do his one-liners, and he can't resist it. And I think not Matt Hancock. He's another one, isn't he? Piers Morgan was asked earlier today whether or not he thought Andrew Tate was intelligent, and he said yes, and I agree entirely. Andrew Tate is incredibly intelligent. But I don't think that even when he's explaining what the loverboy method is, he says the loverboy method is it coercing people into being exploited? No, Tate says it's about being nice and polite. Well, yes, but it's a positive that's easily subverted, and the Tates come across as extraordinarily manipulative and very forceful, and I would be I would feel intimidated, I think. And and I'm not that easily intimidated. I don't like the stuff which Morgan has gone through about COVID and about their idea that COVID is or that the COVID vaccine was a poison. This is a lot of misinformation, and again, it's about control and about the power of being of having a large following. We see it also with Russell Brand. With a large following, with fame comes responsibility. It's a Spider-Man thing. With power and publicity comes responsibility, and I think there has always been a need for debate about the vaccine, but the idea that it is purely a negative thing and that it has nothing of value to it. In fact, it's got really negative value. That this is the conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy fantasy. It's a hoax. Just go back to the reality. People died, and not because of the vaccine. People died because of COVID, and there was an urgency to find a solution. And the solution was not in the lockdown. Matt Hancock was herding people into people's homes, and they died. And Boris was saying, let the bodies pile high, and they died. And Sunak, we now hear, says, let them die, and they did. And I think to turn around and say the vaccine was a poison, the vaccine may not have been efficacious, the vaccine may not have been all it was cracked up to be, but if the vaccine was more of a poison than the virus, then why were people dying? People died. It wasn't a fantasy, it wasn't fiction, it happened. And this sort of giving people like Tate this sort of platform, Piers Morgan, just to satisfy your own vanity, is trampling over people's grief. And it's unkind. It's unkind. So you need some loverboy method instruction, Piers Morgan. Because this isn't the way to manage your media career. There are I think earlier on in the interview they talked about the charges which have been put to them in Romania. This is garbage. Garbage was the word they used. What sort of legal representation, what sort of advice are they getting? Because I can't imagine this helps. And God is paying my bills. Madness! Madness! They were arrested in December 22. Oh, and the Hustlers University. I thought Hustler was a magazine on the top page of on the top shelf of W.H. Smith, but and then I was involved in a plan to do a television show called Hustler, and I thought, well, it's not quite the best name. The show went on in New York or in America anyway. I don't think the show was really ever intended to go on in the UK. And I was slightly irritated to be so duped. But nevertheless, Hustlers University. Well, maybe I should have gone to Andrew Tate's university rather than to Oxford or wherever. It's madness. My woman won't work. Oh, it's so possessive. What if she wants to? I believe female empowerment is in modesty. Female empowerment is in being equal. Femalism, Tate embraced Islam, and Islam is very clear. A woman is equal in the sight of God. And there is a culture of modesty within Islam. There is a culture of modesty in many forms of Christianity. But men and women are created differently by God. A man has certain jobs and a woman has certain jobs. And he calls a woman's emotions a superpower. It's sort of craziness. Um, and the sort of control. I didn't realise there was a relationship between Andrew Tate and Amanda Holden. Amanda Holden is the lady who was in X Factor or something, wasn't it? She was one of the judges, um, and, uh, and 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 Tate apparently. Maybe there was no relationship. Maybe Tate was just attacking her. I didn't fully get all this stuff. Some of this is going over my head here. But Tate said, "You are a wife and a mother, and you are far past a teenager. There's no need for this post." It's not Tate's job to tell somebody what their role is. You can be anything you want to be, can't you? Um, I've, isn't that the whole meaning of Bugsy Malone, for example? You can be anything you want to be, and actually, at this moment now, he's talking about the impact that Andrew Tate has got on men, and particularly on young teenagers. And Tate says that he wants to weaponize. He says he wants to. It's very easy to take the things he says and weaponize them and use them in the incorrect context. He says that's not his fault. That's true. Can he be sure that teenagers don't misunderstand him? No, he can't. That's true as well. But I think I think somebody who has such a big platform and so many people listening to him, and knows that he's got a lot of teenage boys listening to him, has a duty to clarity. His idea, get strong, get rich, do whatever it takes. That I think is dangerous. But is that also the message which is being given by by some politicians? I think it is, and I think the message we need to give is take responsibility and be kind. I take a lot of positivity from his interpretation of this loverboy thing to be being kind. If that's actually what it means, that's a good message. But I'm not at all convinced that's how, even if that's what he thinks it means, that's how it's understood. And I think he's acknowledging this dichotomy at this point in the interview, and he says that his idea on suffering, that you don't suffer as a nobody. I don't understand this. I don't really understand all the Tate jargon, and I'm listening to this interview almost as I'm talking. I'm afraid I'm listening to this interview, and I'm thinking some of this is just beyond me. I would love somebody to explain the Tate message. I would love to have a tutorial on the Tate thing, but I'm not sure I would like it. And I think there's a lot to be said for projecting and encouraging vulnerability. I think there's a lot to be said for making decisions, looking for certainty, but recognizing that things need to be revised and things need to be changed. And what you say today, you may contradict tomorrow. I think that is a positive message, but I don't think that's the message of the Tates. And I think the Tates maybe have got into trouble because they have been misunderstood and because they have not been clear about what they have been trying to say. I understand that confusion, but I think when you have such a following, I think you have a responsibility to have people around you who can guide and modify, edit, and help. And I think one has to be restrained. I was appalled really by the Big Brother controversy, and I find it very difficult to put behind me the stories that I hear about people in the past. So I found it very difficult to put behind me the story of Russell Brand and the Manuel character from Fawlty Towers and his granddaughter. I find it very difficult to put that behind me and look at the new Russell Brand, who is clearly a very different person to the Russell Brand who was clowning around with Jonathan Ross. It's not that I don't want to forgive, it's that I don't think these people impinge on my life, and I think I'm quite happy to walk away. I don't think I need to forgive all these people. I can just get on with doing something different. And if I have to deal with them, well, then I will forgive them and get on with them. And I'm sure they're very nice in real life. But I'm not likely to meet Andrew Tate, and I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to try to. I don't think I'm likely to meet Russell Brand. I'm not going to go out of my way to try to. So therefore, I'm not going to bother changing my mind and changing my bias and my prejudice. I don't like what he did with Andrew Sachs. And I don't like the language which was used on Big Brother. Full stop. And the fact that Andrew Tate has become this mentor and does a certain amount of good, well, great. Do a bit more good and do a little less harm.